Hey there, and thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Port City Blue Talk. I'm Brandon Shope, and on today's episode, a very important topic, one that's very near and dear to my heart, faith. We're sitting down with Chief of Police Donnie Williams. He's the chief here in Wilmington, and he's going to talk a little bit more about a mission that he set out to attend service at more than 30 churches over the past year. He's not done yet. He's got more churches to attend, and he's going to be there in the pew to worship the Lord with the congregation. Let's get into that interview right now here on a special edition, Port City Blue Talk. And joining us right now is Chief of Police for Wilmington, North Carolina. We've got Mr. Donnie Williams. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm good, Brandon. How are you?
It's good to see you. Good.
Good to be seen.
Yes, sir. Well, now I know that this is a topic that is very important to me as a man of faith.
Right.
Very, very important, Chief. You have made it one of your missions to visit so many area churches throughout the Wilmington area over the past year, if I'm correct, right?
Little over a year.
Little over a year. Okay, so even more than a year.
Yes.
Sir, tell me a little bit about, when did you decide to begin those visits, and why did you decide to?
Well, it was a we decision, and when I say we, I'm referring to my wife. Community engagement is very important to me, and it has always been important since I was hired here as a young officer back in '92. And don't get me wrong, order maintenance is also important because we're committed to removing dangerous individuals from our community. But one of the things that I did as chief is I challenged all of our officers to be involved with community engagement and how important community engagement is to me. So if I'm telling them to be involved with the community, I need to do it also. So my wife and I went back and forth about what is something that we can do together that could help us grow personally, spiritually, and help the department and our community out. So I decided that I would approach her and ask her about us attending church together. Every Sunday we would try to worship with a different congregation in the city. The denomination didn't matter to us as long as it was located within the city of Wilmington. And we talked about it, and she agreed to it, and we decided that we would do it as many Sundays as we could, and COVID hit. So when COVID hit, we had to back off because my wife, she's very COVID conscious, and if she's looking, I have my mask on in this interview.
Yes, sir.
And we had to back off a little bit, and we were able to start it back up again. And to date, we have visited, I think, around 34, 35 different churches. I think we did 24 last year.
Wow.
Now, so far this year, we have not visited any, and it's because the number started to pick back up.
Sure.
So we decided to take January and February off, and we're excited because I think we're going to resume with March 13th being our first church visit for the year.
Awesome, Chief. Now, how has the congregation been at each church? I mean, it seems I know we've talked about it, several different times, and it sounds like they've been very welcoming.
They have. They've been very welcoming. There's a few congregations that didn't realize why I was there at first because we didn't get the communication all the way up to the pastor. But for the most part, even the ones that didn't realize who I was or what I was there for, they were very open arms because of the fact that I'm a law enforcement officer, and that made me feel real good because it didn't matter that I was the chief of police, the fact that a Wilmington police officer was in their church worshiping with them.
Yes, sir, definitely. Now talk to me, sir, a little bit about why your faith and beliefs are so important to you as a man.
Well, it guides all of us. It guides what we do on a daily basis, and you always put God first and then your family. And this is important for me because, again, my wife is my best friend, and it's something that we're getting to do and experience together.
Fantastic. I actually met my wife at church. So, yeah, I definitely understand that. Now, sir, tell me a little bit about kind of extending onto that, I guess, even broadening that out. Why is faith so important in today's society as a whole? Like you mentioned, it is the foundation for, morals and values. And talk about, why it is so important in our community and in our nation at this very critical time.
Yeah, you have a lot of things that are going on that are just not the best situation right now. We have the potential for war that's looming. You have violence going on. You have substance abuse. You name it. And we got to be able to look at something. And I'm going to share a quote that a pastor said to us at one of the services we went to. And he basically said that a lot of people in our community, instead of looking up for guidance, they're looking out what they see in front of them. And that's where faith's important. You got to look up for your guidance. You shouldn't base your guidance on what you're seeing that's happening in front of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, definitely. Chief, so you mentioned, you've got another visit coming up here pretty soon. And so that's going to be, you're saying, March 13th, somewhere in there.
Yes, it hasn't been scheduled yet. And people are probably wondering, well, how do you pick the churches that you attend? I don't. Our crime prevention specialist does. She reaches out to the churches and she'll give me a schedule a month in advance. And it's kind of cool because my wife and I, we have no clue where we're going at until a month out. And my wife likes to go online and research to make sure that we're dressed appropriate, that we just don't offend any of the churches that we're going into, because some of the religions that we have seen is something that we're not used to. And that's been very, very eye-opening. Communion. We ended up doing communion 3 times in 1 month, and it was amazing because it was done 3 different ways. Even though the church may have been the same denomination, each church has its own protocols, its own procedures, the way that the offering's done. We've seen it done 30 different ways. So yeah, it is a great eye-opening experience. But the thing that I like about it is Sundays have been said to be the most segregated day of the week. And we get to be part of bonding with all the different people, the different citizens, getting to hear experiences, getting to hear good music. The song Order My Steps, that I'm not going to say which church it was, but Order My Steps, we watched that song be performed and it touched both of us, because we didn't think that congregation could sing like, and it was like, wow, that soloist. And we talk about that to this day, that was the best rendition of that song that we've ever seen.
The music, one of my favorite parts of visiting, different, I've visited some different churches through the years, and then from going to church every, Sunday as well, is seeing how, music brings people together, and how music allows us to worship the Lord. I mean, that is so important, Chief. Well, that kind of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that now there were 2 services that we did attend, and they were a little hard for us to follow, and that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, it's just been very, very eye-opening to just again visit the different churches. And some of these buildings, I've been a patrol officer here for years, and I've driven by them, and I've never been in them. There was one church we went into, and I didn't realize that thing was that big. And it's funny because for years I've driven by it, and they had all these different parking lots, and I was like, I wonder why they have so many parking lots. Well, I went into church for the first time, and I know why now. I mean, it is huge. It is huge. Wow. But because of COVID, there wasn't a lot of people there. We've gone to one church where there's been as many as several hundred people there, and we worship with one congregation where there were only 9 people, including us.
That's cool. So you've seen it from, like you mentioned, Chief, the broader, more people, in there, and then you've seen the more intimate, 8 or 9 people in there.
Yeah, and when we go, I'm not there to give a speech or talk. We just want to go. We want to sit. We want to hear the message, do some fellowshipping, and then get about our day. Now, one pastor did kind of bring us up on stage, and we both went up there and we said a few words, but that's not the purpose for us doing that. Again, we just want to go worship, fellowship, and connect with people.
Now, Chief, if a church is, maybe a pastor is watching this and they say, I'd like the Chief to come stop by, our church, how can they do that?
Well, one is it needs to be in the city of Wilmington, because I think I need to make it to the churches in the city before I start branching outside the city. And I have had requests from a church in Brunswick County. I've had a few from outside the city, and I just want to keep it to the ones in the city. They would reach out to our crime prevention specialist, Letitia Holiday. I don't have her office number off the top of my head, but I know you can put it up at the end of the video. Yes. And just reach out to Letitia, and she books them about a month in advance. And then I'll check with my wife, and we'll go. Now, there's been a few that we have had to cancel because we'll have things that'll come up. But again, it's just been great for the both of us to be able to do this.
Chief, last question here for you, sir. Now, I know you'd mentioned at one of the, at a lot of these, you said, you're not going to make a big speech because you're there to worship. You're there to be one of them and to be the congregation. When it comes to your testimony, what would you like the public to know about your testimony, sir?
The fact that faith has got me to where I am at, and that's pretty much what I said to one congregation we talked to. God had a plan for me 50 years ago, and I was put on this earth to do something, and I don't know if it was to be a police chief or if it was to be something else, because it's amazing. Up to two and a half years ago, I had no desire to be chief of police. Probably about 6 months before Chief Evangelist retired, and then everything fell into place. When I started out as a young officer, my goal was to just be a sergeant, but God had other plans for me. I became a lieutenant, a captain, a deputy chief, an assistant chief, and now I'm chief, and I'm hoping that I will carry out the mission that God has for me to carry out.
Well, as a fellow man of faith, I appreciate your leadership, sir, and thank you for everything you do for our community, Chief, seriously.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be on your show for the first time, yeah.
Yes, sir, we'll have you on many more times, right?
Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks again for watching, and we hope you have a great day today.